Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon to you all. Firstly, my apologies, for being slightly late, not the best of the role model.
Well, we all struggle with the Abu Dhabi traffic from time to time, and it is a very busy time between Expo and the Jubilee and everything that's happening. I want to welcome you all to the Vice Chancellor's Roundtable, the second of our academic year. It's very exciting. It's the second one we've had in person. And nice. Slowly, we're returning to this. We'll also be filming. And you and I will have a look afterwards. And I think if we like what we said, we might share it with more people. We'll chat for about 45 minutes or so. And then we'll also, as always, we'll look to your questions and your comments, which my guest, Adeeb Ahamed, has agreed to field as best we can. As you know, the point of these roundtables is really to get to know people who occupy positions of great leadership and vision. And often, I remember this as a student, from the outside you think, how did that person get there? This is just amazing. I can never do such a thing.
At times I too wonder.
Yes, you too wonder. And so then what we do in a new kind of way of doing career development and expansion of horizons, we try to open up to our students who come from 120 countries what all these different industries are about and how leaders think about those industries. So it's also about the actual fields that we go into and what our journeys are. So with that, let me begin by introducing Adeeb Ahamed. He is the founding managing director of what I truly think we can say is one of the fastest growing financial organizations in the world. And we will ask him about that, of Lulu Financial Holdings. It has a presence in 11 countries, circumventing the UAE, and is, as you'll see from seeing him, if you can look him up, of course, I'm sure you have done that, you've Googled him. He is a real thought influencer in the financial services sector in the GCC, in the Indian subcontinent, and in the APAC regions, and very visionary about how financial services can unlock opportunity for all, which is a very important idea. And his influence has earned him a position on the senior advisory board of the South Asia Regional Strategy Group at the World Economic Forum. And also he's an advisor to the board of Al Maraya Community Bank here in the UAE. Beyond financial services, which is really key to your role, I believe, he successfully established the Abu Dhabi-based hospitality investment firm 2014 Holdings, which has under it some of the most prestigious hotels around the world. He heads up 3 very important verticals for Lulu, and we will talk about that. But without further ado, please welcome our guest, Adeeb.
Thank you.
So let's get started. As I said, when we see a leader like you, it's often hard to imagine how you got started. Could you tell us a little bit about how you began your career journey?
Sure. As I was saying, for you guys to have a context about where I sit today, I think so. I give you a small brief about where it all began from. I don't come from from a financial background whatsoever. I finished my higher education in India, went to Switzerland, did my hospitality management in a college there, moved to London, did my master's from London School of Business, and post which I worked for Marriott as a hotel chain there for a long period of time. And it was good times, and that's when the family wanted me to move here onto this side of the world. And then they said that, we should do something here. And I said that, as you all know, Lulu is a retail brand on this side of the world. They have large presence in all the GCC countries. And I said, that's not what I'm passionate about in doing. Why? Because it's a well-organized, well-oiled machines, and if I come inside, I don't think so there's any value that I can add into that perspective. And I said, I want to do something in the hospitality space. That's because that's what I've learned, and that what I feel my passion is about. And I wanted to set up a company of that sort. the family was totally against, because there's alcohol in that line of business, and we don't deal in any line of business that has alcohol consumption. I said, that's fine, I'll pack up my bags and go back to London. I'm very comfortable there. I had a good career run. I started as a reservation agent for Marriott. And while I moved out in a span of 8 years, I was the director of sales for Middle East and CSR countries, And I thoroughly enjoyed my journey being in that pattern. And I didn't want to come back to Middle East. Why? Because I was enjoying my time in London. But then, one led to another. I was here. I was searching for new opportunities. I come inside and, they said, we want to set up a new financial division for the group. Why? Because it's the most synergized line of business when you talk about the retail side. If you look at large companies, Walmart, Sainsbury, Tesco, at some point of time, they've always diversified into the financial sector because the clientele remains the same for both the sectors, And I said, it's not a bad idea, but keeping me to head that one would be the biggest mistake that the group would ever do, And they said, no, I think so. All the business has pretty much the same DNA. And if you have the will to look in through and find a purpose in doing that line of business, we seem to be confident about the fact that you can head it up. Long story short, I was very fortunate to have a well organized and well experienced set of team members who really helped me in my initial journey. We started in the year 2009. Today, as it was said, we operate in 10 odd countries. We do an annual remittance volume of close to $8.6 billion US, remitting around 13 million transactions on an annual basis. Apart from that, we have created silos on physical banknotes, export and import, which we do at a tune of around $6 billion US annually. But all this didn't happen because of me as a person, I think so. It's because of a culmination of a good set of like-minded people, I think so. That was a core DNA that I brought out in the organization. I said that, I don't need largely very educated people to come inside, but I want people with purpose and passion, And I think so when you have people with purpose and passion, I think so a lot could be achieved, in every aspect, So if I look back and then what our chairman asked me when he asked me to take up this purpose is that he said that, if you could find a purpose in what you're going to do, and then if you have a passion to do it, then I think you should do it, And I think so that's the two key words that I took from him. And I said, let me look into this industry. And I think I found a passion there, that industry was very different from the hospitality side. But I think so I found a passion in making sure that I keep up a promise of people. We largely here in UAE, we have 90% of migrant population, and they come to this land seeking answers to a lot of their problems worldwide, or they seek a kind of aspiration in this land, and that has to be met in some other land, because you have family somewhere else, you have requirements, you have necessities, needs. What we do is that, we are the bridge between that need, between that person's reason of being here to his end satisfaction, which is his family back somewhere else in the world. We are the guys who actually do that piece of work that really gets their money, which in turn leads to, meeting their need of them being here, I think so that's the purpose that I found in this line of business. It's a very exciting line. Couple of years ago, I couldn't see beyond a certain point, So once we expanded into 10 more countries, my question to myself was, what next would I do? And I couldn't find what else could I get inside, And, for almost 2-3 years, I was pretty much on the dark side, But last couple of years, especially during this pandemic, with the rise of digitalization and the rise of adaptation of technology, a lot of changed in our sector, And that couple of years has really helped me to give a new meaning to what we are doing. And today we are getting into much more areas of operations. So that's
what a wonderful start. Thank you very much. Purpose and passion. Purpose and passion. We talk a lot about that here. And when I've been here, you are describing it, and you're in such concrete terms. Purpose, passion, and enterprise. The new PPE. You heard it here first. I think this is great. We're going to get into some of these comments you've made about the industry that you've been developing. Can you just take a step back with us? Because you went off to London, your family was here. What had brought your family to the UAE? Can you talk about that and what keeps your family here?
Yeah, I think the family has been here for almost 5 decades. My grandfather came here in the year 1968 when UAE was not even a state at that point of time. It was a culmination of different emirates. You know, I think we got our unity in 73 or 74, I believe. My grandfather used to show me passport, you know, where you have to take a stamp if you have to go to Abu Dhabi and Dubai, you know. So, you know, it was a time when this was 2 different countries as such. But he came here with a thought process of finding livelihood, you know, and I suppose, and he was taken over by my uncle and my father-in-law, Mr. Yusuf Ali, who came here and saw a purpose, I believe, in what he was doing down here. He saw a larger picture, you know, and when the Gulf War was happening, a lot of people moved back from here. But I think so he stayed here, you know, he stayed here, and then, you know, he really saw this as a place that could fulfill his purpose. At the same point of time, he had a strong belief in the vision of the rulers of this great country, you know. I think so from the Sheikh Zayed's time, you know, stories that I've heard, he was a man of great vision, you know, and his visions were very simple, very realistic, you know. It was not a larger than life at that point of time, but he was taking one step at a time. And, you know, when these kind of smaller visions starts to be part of the center stage, I think so that's what really gives purpose to a lot of people who was here at that point of time. And I think so one of those were our family as well. And then, you know, they kept staying here and, you know, kept expanding their line of business on this side, you know. I think so one led to another, you know. The space soon became home for a lot of subcontinents like myself. I'm a 2nd generation on this side here. My children are the 3rd generation. You know, they're born and brought up here. I was born in India actually, but my children are born and brought up here. Very interesting thing that happened the other day was that, you know, they were playing national anthem of India on the TV, and my daughter asked me, you know, it's a good song, which movie is it from? And I said, it's not a movie song, it's our national anthem, you know. But my daughter sings the national anthem of this country from her heart, you know, and it makes me sad in one way because they'll never be associated with India as much as I am, but it makes me proud to the factor that, you know, they are solemnly given into this land, you know, and you know, for them, you know, they've seen this country, they've grown in this country, and it makes a big difference from being here, you know. I came here because of a reason, that's why they never got a chance to be there, you know, but they love it here, you know. And I think so in a longer perspective, that would happen to every migrant, you know, out, you know. They would soon start to lose a bit from their place, but, you know, they all become a part of what we call being a global citizen, you know. I think so in many words, authors have said, you know, migration is like gravity, it can never be stopped, you know. At one point of time, I believe that the borders will be vanishing, and, you know, this will become a one beautiful world that we can all call home.
Inshallah. I absolutely underscore that, and our universities, we've talked about this before, you and I, it's founded on that idea.
Absolutely.
It's a little hard and dark at the moment, but we must keep believing in it as we come out of this pandemic. And many of our students, you know, from other countries, 40% of the students who come from outside the UAE to study here at Emirates Abu Dhabi stay here. They seek work here, yeah. So they had that same experience that Absolutely. Your family over a longer time went through. Now, one more part of your background. Your university experience. You had the hospitality experience. When you look back at what you learned in your higher education, how important is it to what you do today, or how is it important, or does it not really matter so much? But how would you reflect on your
I think so. The school and the universities plays a very important role, you know, now more than ever before. Why? Because I think so in my higher secondary, there was no Google at that point of time, you know, for us to search on a lot of things, you know. That doesn't seem that I'm too old, you know. I still come in between, you know. I'm a 80 born, so I think so. I come in a time where I've seen no telephones to, iPhones taking in a matter of a quick period of time. Why I feel that education is very important is because I strongly feel that going forward, it becomes the first step on young people to actually understand how a social economic fabric actually works. It's the first place that you start to share. It's the first place that you start to socialize before you get into the larger world of doing things. So I think so. It's the place that can really tell you and teach you. I think so. It's a place that would really give you the fabric on how to address the world in your tomorrow's needs. It may be a bit hard to relate to what I say today, but I'm sure that in a couple of years when you're outside, you will also start to understand as much as, because when I was in university, I was eager to get out of university. I said, what a boring place this is. I just want to get out and, start doing something on my own and, not have to get up early in the morning and go inside to a university, study, do my projects, my thesis. These are so hard, as soon as I get my first job, But once you're out, you're thinking, I wish I had stayed there more, and it becomes a part of everybody's story at some point of time or the other. But I strongly believe that what I am today is a reflection of my teachers, my professors, and everybody who had given me the right tools for me to face the world. So for me, it's a very important aspect that is. And what I just want to add one other thing. Long time ago when I was working in London, the regional VP, I suppose I can't remember his name, of Four Seasons Properties, and one of my friends were working there, and I went there for their annual summit that happens every year on the property. So I accompanied her because she didn't have anybody to go at that point of time, and said, more than happy to join you to go to that event. And he said something that has stuck with me ever since. He said, for a person to become successful in life, there needs to be three things. The first one, he or she should have a scarless childhood. And what he meant by that is that, should be having a childhood that has the right, basically a good environment that would really bring you up. Number two, he said that, you should have the right education. By education, he means it's not having degree and, you have, whether you are an A+ student or a C student or so. But it's very important that, he goes through the path of an education in which he learns how to be in the larger society, or she learns to do that. And number three, he said that, it's very important that at every junction of your life, you need to have a mentor. And I think so these three things had been very important for me, and especially the last part of having a mentor. And a mentor is not somebody who always would stay with you. A mentor is somebody who comes to your life, who would be there with a certain purpose, and when that purpose is met, you would find that guy or she would start to fizzle off from your life, and you then have to start looking for a new mentor out. And I found that in my case, and I'll give you an example, is when I was working at my first job, I already had a general manager there. He was always dressed very sharply. And I used to look up to him and say that, that's the first thing that I should do if I have to face people out. And then the second thing is that I had another manager of mine who came in later on, who was Howard Hardley. The way he approached his clientele with a very passion and, a very one-to-one touch helped him to keep a lot of clientele, and I learned a certain aspect from him. And as it used to keep on, I had different mentors in my life who I used to take a small part, innovate it or better it to my needs, and then I used to keep expanding, So I think so it's very important that, you have all these things to have a larger picture in your life,
It's a wonderful description of education that never stops, actually.
Yes, absolutely.
And how your teachers and mentors, there's a great overlap between teachers and mentors, to be sure. And they can be in and outside formal
Absolutely.
institutions, yes, as you've said. What I find beautiful about the story you began with there is that, of course, those three things, especially the first, the scarless upbringing, is very hard for many people in the world to attain.
Yeah.
And I always think about how in later stages, the people who teach you and the mentors how much they can actually compensate
True.
for those deficits. And that's in a way what so much of education is about and what equitable education is about, I think. So, and you really described that very beautifully, finding mentors later in life. And mentors also will come your way without you expecting it.
True.
Not always wanted, but then you learn. You learn. So let's talk a little bit more about now the enterprises. You are leading 3 of the companies under the Lulu Group International umbrella, and which have expanded very rapidly in the past decade. And of course, hospitality investment is one of them, retail and F&B is one of them, and of course, financial services. But it came out of even a larger a group that started. How did Lulu get started? Because of course we know it especially as the retail organization here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I said, the family was here. It started as a small bakala shop, a small cash and carry here, in the late 70s, and then bakala became a supermarket, and supermarket became a hypermarket into shopping malls. So at a very gradual growth point. So if you really look at it, they are at a number of 245 odd stores worldwide, but happened in a period of 50 years. And that's what I add. When I say you need purpose and you need passion, you need one more thing, and it's patience. It's very important. So the element here is that nothing that goes up very fast stays up for too long. A sound foundation would take a lot of time. And the right example is the Chinese bamboo tree. If you see a Chinese bamboo tree, it grows a lot underneath for a very first couple of years, and then one fine day it shoots up very high. Unless without a strong foundation, it's very difficult to have that sky high growth. So I think whenever I try to do things at a fast pace, a lot of senior guys at the company would say, Adeeb, slow down. There is definitely a tomorrow that you can do this in a much better way. And I keep saying that, maybe it's because of my last, the time frame that I've come through, and I said that, no, I should do it faster, I should do it better, I should do it, and now at a point, I think, if I look back and I would say, is there better ways of doing it? Yes, of course, there are better ways of doing it. Would I have done the same thing in a different way? Yes, I would have done the same thing in a better way. But those are all learnings that you get on your job, and there is no right and wrong in that aspect. You just have to take that learnings and you have to implement it in your future projects as such. And that gives you more stability and stability as you go ahead. So it's very important that don't miss those learnings. Be patient to hear out a lot of things, and the best people are those who can criticize you. Take criticism in a very positive manner. I think so. The more criticism you take, you say that everything that comes to you, I will turn it into a much more better aspect of myself. And if you take it up very negatively, then you start thinking, oh my God, I don't think so. This is what I were to do. I should just pack up and leave. This is not. We all have those low times in our life, but never feel disheartened. There is something always better as long as you understand the purpose of doing it. There is nothing that can stop you to reach where you have to reach.
Purpose leads. I think that's right, and can induce patience. Absolutely. Up to a point. You lead 3 of these companies under the Lulu Group, and 3 that have expanded very dramatically in the past decade. Can you talk about first of all, explain what the 3 sectors are, the verticals, so to speak, and what are the factors that made this growth possible?
Sure. So the first of the sector is the financial holdings. What we do is that we invest into fintech companies worldwide. The idea was that we create a holding company predominantly to start investing in future fintechs and so on and so forth. We started this journey 10 years ago. Even before fintechs were very widely heard in this side of the world. We kept the idea that there is always a different or a better way to do it. My way of doing is that I challenge the status quo. If there is something that is done today, I would think always go and challenge that status quo and say, why should it be done that way? Why cannot be done it in a different manner? Or is there a better way of doing it that could ease the way of working? I tell all my colleagues when I come inside, the first thing I do when I get into my office is think, how more lazy can I get today? And answer to that is just to make my work life more effective. And if I have to do that, I have to start eliminating a lot of processes, So if I really think about if I have to be a CEO of a company and I have to be very lazy every day, I need to make sure that it works in a very tight, watertight, process-driven, effective manner that the results can come in, I get to see everything on a second to second and a minute to minute, So that thought process actually, I didn't say this for a couple of more years till I settled down. I didn't want people to take it in a wrong manner and became lazy the day when they joined me. So I kept it to myself and I said that, if I have to be lazy, I have to make sure that the process under me becomes very easier, and more tighter, So how do I keep more job pushing downwards and I get them to do it in a way that I can monitor it on a second by second, day by day way, So that's the purpose when I really started to think and do it inside. Remittance industry on this side was a very traditional brick and mortar. You go to an exchange house, you start exchanging, you give in money. My question is that why should there be money? And a lot of you will not believe. On the retail side, they used to employ 12,000 people here in UAE. And when I came in 2009, and this is the most funniest, in 2009, they used to give 12,000 people cash salaries every month. So there used to be envelopes packing that used to happen end of the month. And I think that, what's wrong? There's something wrong in this scenario, You get bank transfers and things like those, And that's when I understood a large chunk of people didn't want a bank account because what they would do is that they used to take this money, go to an exchange house and then remit this money back home, and keep a very small sum of money inside. And that made me think, the scenario is not working out, So then I started working with the bank. We launched plastics into the market. Today we have around 600,000 plastics in this market that we load salaries for those unbanked consumer bases. The reason why they used to prefer having cash is because they didn't find a safe place to leave it when they go for work. And most of this is shared dormitories and so on and so forth that they were staying. I found a pain point there, and I tried to address that pain point by giving in a plastic. Funnier stories more. When we worked with Central Bank to introduce this format into the market, they were the first to tell us that, you will find very hard challenges in getting them to blue-collar workers to start using plastics in an ATM machine because they are not educated to do that one. I said, that's not a problem, it's our problem. We will go and teach them. I've seen in my own eyes where this guy would go to, there used to be always a security guard next to an ATM machine. He used to give his card to the security guy and say, brother, can you take 400 dirhams from me inside this card, And the guy says, I need your PIN number. And he would give the PIN number without any hassle, And we have to teach them, you should not be sharing all these details, And, you could do it yourself, So but that process took 2-3 years for us to get everybody to get inside and do those things. Today, I think so we have come to an area, we have not just banked, but I think so we are overbanked in this scenario. There's so many of financial institutions down here trying to compete on the same 10 million odd population that we hear, that we are now getting into a new way. Today the way is that, I think so, gone are the times that I don't remember when I visited a branch last time. Today everything happens from a click of a button. So we took advantage of that particular aspect and, we bought off Lulu Money, which is a digital app that allows you to send money without coming into that aspect. We spread it across all the 10 countries that we worked it out. That's when we started our investment in India, where they were building shopping malls, and the shopping mall don't need a lot of GFA. GFA, for those who don't know, is the ground floor area. So in order to optimize it, you need to build something on as a large tower on the side. And the team in India decided to build a hotel, and I said, that's not fair. I asked you first, and you didn't give me a permission. But then they said that we need to create a model. So we created a model. How is that? We take the entire revenue, and whatever revenue comes out, not the profit, but the revenue that comes out from alcohol, we give it to charitable purposes. So the company does not take any revenue out of the alcohol. That was a good model for us to adopt. It was adopted by the board, and then I went on a shopping sphere to find out assets worldwide, try to get inside. 2014 we started this purpose, and hence the company is called 2014 Holdings. Didn't waste much of a time to find a name for the company. We today have around 660 million worth of assets worldwide. We own the Waldorf Astoria in Edinburgh. We bought out the first office of the Metropolitan Police in London, which we converted into the Great Scotland Yard Hotel, opened up in 2019, shut it down in 2020. Was not a great element because of the pandemic. We reopened it again in 2021. We own the downtown Pullman in Dubai, Sheraton in Oman, 4 properties in India, developing a couple of other properties as such. Good industry to be at. Last 2 years was the worst. There was blood coming out from almost all part of my body, trying to keep it at float. But do I have hope? Yeah, I think so. Most of us are all creatures of habit, and the habit is that we want to explore. We would want to travel at some point of time, see new places. So the hospitality plays a very important aspect. It's one of the most oldest industries standing. If you take around, there is 10% of the world GDP comes out of from travel and tourism. So it's a very critical aspect. So yes, we are very bullish on that sector. And the last part was the retailing aspect. We were building shopping malls in India, so I thought it was good to bring out brands internationally and introduce them to people of the world. But what I didn't see happening on that sphere is that the brands of the world were all losing its glitter and shine. The best example is that I bought Toys R Us from US to India. The day I opened my first store, they announced bankruptcy in US. So it was not the best of the openings that we could have. And then they had their own problems for the next couple of years. We had our own trying to figure out how to do things. And that's when I really thought about that. We should stop franchising and start creating new brands. And find out what is going to be relevant for the next couple of years. So I think so we had a huge 360 degree of changes into that sector, and today we are trying to create new brands through the collaborations with young entrepreneurs who finds that there is a need of a certain sector that is happening inside, and then we invest with them and start to create new brands out in India. It's a large market, and so we thought it's the best format to do that one. Some of what I do.
It's some of what he does. Isn't it amazing? Adeeb, it's extraordinary. So the role of managing director, which you play in such a large and complex and diversified organization like yours, it can seem a little mystifying to students and really to me as well. What does a managing director's role entail? Can you describe maybe a day or a week in your life? What are the sorts of things you're busy with most of the time? Well, even though you want to be lazy, we know you're not.
Yeah, I know. No, I think so. The biggest thing that I do on a day-to-day is what my designations are. I'm managing. I manage a lot of people. I think so. That's the hardest part of getting, because when you have great minds in one room, it could lead to a lot of conflicts. So you need to start analyzing and getting everybody into one line of thought process. So I think so at somewhere in your path also you would have there, I think so a present time you must have read, I would say analysts define this particular time that we're going through as a time of great resignations. Why? I was part of the World Tourism Forum last week in Andermatt in Zurich, and we were discussing the same thing down there. Why is it called the great part of resignations? Is because the need and necessity of the new workforce that are coming into this element has changed, and we as sectors have not seen that change coming ahead of time, and that's why people are just leaving and going inside. If you look at the hospitality, I take that as an example. Why? Just because you say one of the most longest hours to be put inside, one of the lowest paid industries worldwide, yet we want to employ more and more into that sense. And so as new graduates and new elements that are going inside, why would you be attracted to that line of interest? We don't keep pace with the needs and necessities that you have, you know. So I think so that's complacency that crawled up into one large industry, and that complacency was never addressed. Why? Because of the need of multiple stakeholders. You know, you have operators, asset owners, tour operators, and many of those kind of things, you know. And when these things don't get addressed, you would have people who would say that, you know, I think I can be taken care in other industries, that I don't have to work or put in so much time, so I have to move. But having that said, it doesn't mean that we could just shut down the large invested properties that we have worldwide. You know, we need to find a solution to that one. And what would be that solution? You know, I think so that's where we are putting in a lot of time and effort in addressing. So even in the last 18 months where we had opportunities, our team in India went through a churn of almost 80%. 80% resigned out of our company. First time in the history of the last 10 years that I had 80% of my workforce that left my organization in our particular office in India. And I was taken back, you know, and I started to drill deep to understand why, you know. Why is because there was a large opportunity from the IT sector because of the digitalization process. Enormous amount of people were recruited by large corporates like Google, Microsoft, IBM, and so on and so forth. And smaller people like us couldn't afford to, you know, keep up to the ranks of the pace that was coming inside, and the element that we in. So we had to tweak our strategies in such a way that we had to then work with third parties. At the same point of time, had to be flexible in our way of working as well. You know, we had on-office work, off-office work. You know, we had to find out new strategies that would attract new talents to come inside, and so on and so forth. You know, so I think so. A large part is to strategize the next of your organization. You know, while your team would always work towards stabilizing what's inside, as somebody who's sitting right at the top, you know, you have heavy shoes to fill up by becoming that element of deciding where your company goes next, and those decisions are very critical. Why? Because in my organization that I head up, I am responsible for a little over 5,000 odd people, you know, and I don't see that as only 5,000 people. I say I add an additional 3 into every person, you know. It's their family that is attached to that one, you know. So if I take that into account, 5 into 3, 15,000 odd people, you know, I'm responsible for. You know, one bad decision from me could end up a disaster for 15,000 odd people that I would be responsible for, you know. So for us, you know, it's very important to understand, and we as an organization have a large connect to our people, you know. That's where our DNA of our organization is, you know. An average person in our organization, apart from the Indian office that happened this particular scenario, would have spent at least 6-7 years with us, you know, in the last 10 years of in my journey. And, you know, in our group office, the average lifespan is 18 years plus, you know. You would find employees who have stayed there for what, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, you know, and that's because of the connect that we have with our employees. You know, I have a forum that I say it's called Ask MD. It's something that anybody can write to me, and my responsibility is to get back to them in 48 hours, you know. It could be, you know, work related or things, and, you know, there is a 100% anonymity to all those things. It's a one-to-one attachment. You know, I make sure that, you know, my contact goes down right to the last level of people, so that I don't lose touch. You know, normally what happens is that great ideas come from the people who are facing the consumers. You know, so it's a platform also to get their buying into the business. You know, it helps me to create a better strategy for our organization.
What a remarkable set of challenges you faced during the pandemic. I hadn't thought about that draw of coders away from companies like yours that are undergoing digital transformation and need those coders too.
True. Yes.
But the shiny big tech companies will win out. Very interesting. And yet there's a lot of opportunity with a company like yours, as you just described. I want to ask you something. You just described the task of a leader who is a manager, the head of management of a company. You also serve on boards to which managers are accountable. Yeah. Tell us what it's like from point of governance. What is it like to be a board member? What sort of responsibilities do you have as a board member of a company, whatever company it is?
So in our company till recently, we didn't have a board unless I became a board member of another board, and I really understood what is the importance of a board, The way that I learned it is to the aspect that, a board needs to be created from different walks of life. So a person could give a different perspective to your organization, and that perspective would help the organization to be run in a totally different manner, So in boards in the World Economic Forum or the World Tourism Forum and the Almeria Bank that I serve as board members to, we all come with a certain level of expertise in a certain area. But that doesn't mean that our viewpoints are the most crucial. But the element is that we give our perspective. Somebody from an academic perspective would give their perspective into doing these things. Somebody from a philanthropy aspect gives in their perspective on how certain things needs to be run through. So the board members should be aligned in different angle, so that they can give a larger purpose to the institution that you're running through. So in our case, when we started to induct board members into our institutions as well, we started taking people from different walks of life. So we had somebody from the fintech area, or somebody from a bank's perspective, somebody from a perspective of a consumer facing, somebody from a legal aspect of looking at things. This gives a 360-degree view to a board while making a decisions to get inside. Should we get into a certain way of doing a business, or should we not get into a certain way of doing business? Or is this business the right format of doing inside? Further, the boards are further declassified into smaller working groups as well, where we look at efficacy, we look at morality of the business that is running through, future of the business, so that's a key critical area at this point of time. How fast are we innovating to keep pace with the new generation that is going to hit the market in the next couple of years, and if what we are doing is relevant for the next decade and the decade after that, and if not, what are the changes that we need to adopt to move into those areas as well. So as a board, it's very important that we take a larger holistic vision of running, whereas the CEO and below has a very tunneling approach to the way that they do business, and bottom line becomes the key aspect of what they're doing. It's a maker and checker aspect. If I were to put it very simply, if the maker is the running team, the checker is the board.
Very wonderful explanation of the difference between what the CEO has to think about and a board, and a beautiful statement of the value of diversity, which we talk about a lot in our very diverse community. And I think there were times in the past where boards were quite homogeneous, and I think what you described is very purposeful, looking for diversity of experience, including even maybe a run-of-the-mill consumer on your board. It's kind of a revolutionary idea, but it probably makes you a better company.
Yes, and I've seen an organization that has that. So there are certain organizations that I've seen that they bring. The best example that is the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. If you take it's a Nobel Prize winning idea on that one. If you look at the board members, they're housewives, single mothers, a lot that comes from a totally different as farmers. Every smaller industry as such that the bank would want to touch, they take somebody from that industry and put it across their board. So they would tell what are the pain points that we face in our way of working every day. So the bank can create a product that would help them to cater into that things. The idea is a very noble idea. I think so. The guy even won a Nobel Prize.
Yunus,
of this one. It's very important. So if you Google about the bank, it's called Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. They've done a wonderful job in creating that idea.
I have so many questions, but I think we'd like to hear from you, our students, or anyone in the audience. Please, if you have a question. We're a small group, so if you feel you can project through your mask, that's fine, or you can go to one of the two mics. They're a little bit to the side there. But please, we welcome your questions. And would you like some water? You are doing
I'm
wonderful.
okay.
You're okay.
Perfect.
Please.
Thank you also for taking the time to speak with
Thank you. It's a combination of everything, So reading is very important. It keeps us up to date with what's happening inside our industry. I spent quite a lot of my time to do a lot of research on what's happening here and there. Meeting people it's a passion for me as well. I like meeting new peoples and talk to about it. So when I go to the economic forum every year in Davos, I never go into a banking conference. I never go into a hospitality conference. I always goes to science and technology. I go to areas that I feel that I don't have enough knowledge about, and I go and sit and listen to all those conferences to understand. And there are certain times that I feel that there are certain cues that I can pick up from those and start adopting into my way of working, So that's one other element that I like. A lot of talks, in-person talks that I hear online. Even though if I don't get a time to attend it, I take it a note to make sure that I download it, and whenever you're traveling on a flight, it's the best time. You don't get any distraction. You spend your 5-6 hours of just yourself and your ideas, your thoughts. So I use that. I've been missing that in the last 18 odd months, till the point that my wife asked me, are you not going anywhere? You're spending too much time in this house. So it was always a me time for myself. When we used to travel out. So I use all those time to do all those kind of readings and things.
Please.
So I have a very different view to different industries as such. So if I look at a fintech industry, if I don't get a return back on the investment once I launch the product in 6 to 12 months, I feel that I won't make the money in next 6 years also. So I've gone wrong somewhere. So I have a very short perspective. Why? Because it's a trading business. I come from a trading background DNA. And in trading business, if you don't do it in the first 6 months, you'll never do it, But when you go into the hospitality sector, because it's an asset-backed things, where everything boils down to 3 simple things: location, location, location. So you get your location right, there's hardly any ways that you can go wrong. Unfortunately, the time was never calculated because we never put that into the whole cycle of analysis. Where we thought that we'll ever get hit with a COVID scenario. We had multiple combinations to think about factors, not getting rates inside, have to improve. I think we made plans for almost everything, but not COVID. So that's why we had to shut it down. Fortunately, we had a strong financial backing in terms of cash holding in the system. That is the only reason why we could stay at float. But if this prolong, it will become a problem like for anybody else. So I hope that this starts to simmer down, and you slowly start people coming through. The present vibes are not very positive with COVID cases rising in Europe, and we've started seeing the dip in our occupancy from last month onwards. Again in the market, so that's not good sign for us. Whereas we have Dubai, which is like been running on a hyper boost level since September, and we are very thankful for that. So in September we were running at an 80% occupancy. October beat those numbers. November is beating those numbers, and we are crossing fingers that December will also beat those numbers. So I think so. That's the pros and cons that you find if you mitigate your risk by putting your investments in different geographies. So that's another way of looking at it. On the retail side, yes, was a challenge because of the logistic element. Logistic is still a big challenge unless Asia and US starts to open up on a full swing. The cost of containers are very high at this point of time. So you have to add all those things to your cost before you can sell. And that's not possible when it comes to certain retailing product. You can't change prices very fast, you know. So that's another challenge that we are facing. But I think so that will start to settle down, you know, as and when China and US starts to open up and the container starts following back inside.
Lots of questions. Let's go to this side and we'll come back to you guys.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is that we have separate capital allocated for each verticals, so we don't intermingle the capital at a certain point of time. But when the flow capital comes back, the allocation goes to somebody who can give me a faster returns than to somebody who will take a longer return aspect, you know. So always the first choice of investment would become a fintech. Why? Because, you know, the capital allocation and returns are much more faster on that side. The second thing is in the hospitality side. Why? Because it's always backed. You know, the risk is much more lesser. It has an asset backed on every investment that we do. Normally at today's junction, you know, there were times when hospitality assets used to make its own profit. But today we see this as also as a disinvestment strategy. So when we do a disinvestment after a certain period of time of holding the asset, you look at an year-on-year capital appreciation of somewhere between 10 to 12%, you know. And if those numbers are matching up, you know, then you would feel that, you know, you would put the asset inside, you know. 50% of the asset that we hold is put into Europe, and remaining 50 is put between GCC and Indian subcontinent, you know. So we have a clear demarcation on that side, you know. Why in Europe 50% is because the land is always finite there, unlike you find here, you know. Here you would find cities opening up every other day, you know. So in Dubai you go, you have the downtown, and then you have the marina, and then you have the Arabian ranches. We've lost touch on where the city is expanding in Dubai, you know. And of course in Abu Dhabi also there is certain things. Saadiyat was not here in last decade or so, you know, and then, you know, Saadiyat came inside. It was always the main city. So people who had today in the main city is no longer there. It's the same story in Dubai. If you have a property in Dera, today it may not work in your favor, you know, because the city has lost, that side has lost a luster. There's only a few set of clienteles who wants to go to that side. More happens on downtown and on the marina side, you know. So you can't hold on to something, you know. So that's something that, and again, I've learned, you can't be too sentimental when it comes to business, you know. You need to have an open idea of exiting when the time is right, you know. And then, you know, booking your profit and then moving towards the new things, you know. So if you are becoming too clingy or too attached to that line of business, then it starts to get personal, you know. And if it starts to get personal, then I don't think so you make a right business decision, you know. So you need to keep a distance between what you do and the right choice for your organization.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I look at whether he has a purpose, you know. The element is that at beginning I've seen a lot, but today what we see is that, you know, everybody wants to come in to make a quick buck and exit out, you know. I don't like guys who come with ideas and says, that's my idea, why don't you buy me out of it, you know. So, and I see that, you know, then what's your interest in staying there, you know. I like to co-invest with guys who wants to see this through, you know. If you may not be the best person to quote or may not be the right example, but if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, you know, when he came out with Facebook, you know, one of his biggest thing was he was not willing to let go controlling stake, you know, because he had that passion to see a bigger picture in that, you know. I think so that's the one reason why that company has grown to this level, you know. So similarly, I like to see people who has seen a larger vision in that company and wants to take it one after another to there. And as long as they have that ability and can show me that they are solving a pain point in the market, you know, we are all ears and eyes to you.
Please.
I'll take the first one. As you come out, like, if I look back into myself and I think what was the best thing that happened between me getting out of the university and me taking up a serious entrepreneurial journey, was the time in between where I had opportunity to work in different companies, and learn a lot of things. I think so. At some point of time, it's very important that you learn through being with somebody else who's doing certain things in the market. It allows you to structure your ideas in a certain aspect. It gives you a base of thought process saying that, yeah, that's how it is done. I could do it. So where you can start challenging the status quo and saying, yes, I can do it better. And you then start to formulate an idea that would give you a purpose. The second aspect of that question is, when we look at Europe, it's a more advanced society and advanced in terms of infrastructure. But having said that, there is still a lot of opportunities down there. But we find faster returns on this side of the world. So if you really look at GCC, or the MENA region as such, and the Indian subcontinent and the Far East, we find that we're slightly slow in adaptation of a lot of technologies. That leaves a large gap for us to address many main points. And I think so that means that money deployed on this side would see faster returns coming through. That's why and the entry barriers are very high. If you really look at on this side of the world, because the ecosystem is not fully developed, the entry barriers are very high. Once you're inside, you get a market all to yourself. Whereas with the entry barriers are lesser on the other side, you have stiff competition when it comes inside. So unless you come out with a really creative idea aspect, you would not be able to challenge what's happening on the Western world. And that also reminds, if you look at many of the entrepreneurs who have started new things, they've always been working in that particular field, and they've understood that there was a pain point, could be further well addressed, and then they got into that level. There's a lot of complacency that is there out there in the market, and I think so. If you look at only that complacency, there's a company called TransferWise. TransferWise is a money remitting organization. They came out with a very simple ideology, and I think so, I wished I had that stuck in my head before. What they did is that they used to remit money from different parts of the world. Traditionally, what used to happen is that it used to get converted into US dollars, and the money used to physically move inside. But what these people understood is that, see, I have a requirement of A currency on one side and B currency on Y side. Why should I be moving it up and down? I'll just have to settle it between the countries, and I hold the currency. Thereby, I can save a lot of money on the transfer, and that could directly go into my underlying profit. So set-offs was an idea that came out with TransferWise, and I think so they played that idea in a very beautiful manner. Today, they're one of the largest listed fintechs in UK, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's an example where your competitor got a step ahead of
you. Yes.
But I want to go back to something you said earlier that was so fascinating to me. I've never really thought a lot about the mechanics of the remittance business, but it's of course so important. Your company helps people transfer money hard-earned to loved ones abroad. It is so to serve the purpose of why they came here or to other countries in the first place. And you told the story of getting people used to ATMs and plastic. Now you have to do it all over again. You've just, through all this investment in fintech, helped propel the digital transformation with these apps. Can you say something about how the worker community you serve, the migrant worker community in particular, how you can help, how the industry can help those workers have access to apps like that? Do they all have phones? Do you have teaching programs? Can you talk a little bit about how you have to do it all over again, this new transformation process?
So like what we did when we launched the plastics into the market, when we launched the app into the market, we literally had to go down into labor camps, cultural organization that gets communities together and start to do a basic 101 course with everybody, where we used to take them step by step. We used to have people up like this way in the auditorium. We used to have a large screen taken to that place, and we would explain them, this is how you download, this is how you do that one, this is how you can do this one. And this we see a lot of adaptation that is happening now. I think so. In UAE, the total remittance that we do, around 10 to 15% is now digitally converted. And we see that that's holding stronger month by month. There's a lot of ecosystem correction that needs to be still done because of regulatory frameworks that happens on this side of the world. We do have challenges to make sure there's a seamless connections, but every day there is somebody who's bringing in a new technology that is helping us to make our service much better. So I think so again, adopting into all those new technologies really helping us to get inside. Today, the first and the most basic point that we wanted to address when we got inside in the year 2019 was that the average expected time of credit was still expected at 24 hours. So it could happen from 0 to 24. As we went into the element, we started to bring down 24 into 18, 18 into 16. Today our TAT time is less than 15 seconds. The moment you come and do a remittance on with us, and before you leave our shop, your beneficiary anywhere in the world would have already received the money. Even the same happens on your app. You immediately get a message saying that the beneficiary has received the money. That took a lot of work around connecting, finding partners. Never think that we could do everything by ourselves. I think so that would be by far, in my view, the biggest mistake that we can. That's taking too much onto the plate. Partnerships are very important. Partnerships, collaborations, very important when it comes to key of success of any organization. Because we are extremely good in a certain aspect. Similarly, there's somebody else who is certainly good in those aspects. Once you clarity yourself, of course, there is backward integration that you could do tomorrow to save time. But I think so you should always take it one step at a time so that you will always be good in what you're doing and, people knowing. Everybody asked us this question in 2009. This market was flooded with exchange houses and money operators. What would Lulu do differently? And I had no answer to them. And my answer to them mostly was that, we would become a much more customer-oriented organization. And I think so that's the key that we weren't. We started listening to our consumers more and asked them, what more do you expect from this industry? And most of them said that, the time delay is what I have, because once I've parted ways with my hard-earned money, I want it instantaneously on the other side, because there is a use for my family on the other side. They have to pay school bills and things like those. I'll give you one more example that we recently launched a wallet service in Philippines. And the reason is that a lot of single mothers or single parents have their children still in Philippines and they come here. And they depend on their first relatives or cousins or their mothers to send their money to them, and then for them to use that money for their children. And somewhere we found that they are addressing a problem of leakage. The money never gets fully utilized for their children who they are sending inside. What we came out with the product was, with the use of our team in Philippines, was that they can now remit the money to their own wallet in Philippines, and then they could make the domestic payments from that wallet sitting out of here. That really helped us. They could make school payments. They could give credits to a local grocery shop who could tell them, okay, you let my son buy X amount of, or children buy X amount of food products down there, and I give you that credit every year from my wallet. So it could be instantaneously. I could make my bill payments. I could make my electricity payment, everything without the help of a third party. That's again finding a niche market down there and adding value to your product. So once you have stabilized on your core product, you need to add more stickiness to it. And how do you add stickiness is to find out what more you can add, that your app becomes more purposeful as it grows. I hope I have.
That's a beautiful description and explanation. Any last question? Let's see. You already asked one, so I'm going to go to Ranti.
if I look at UAE as a society, the rate at which we adopt is never seen in the world. I think so. A lot of people, as you said, ma'am, around 40 people, 40 nationalities here.
120.
120 nationalities.
45 professors.
Okay.
The professors from 45 countries, the students from 120.
I think so. If you just reflect the kind of adaptation that we do here to the rest of the world, and I come from India, our adaptation is way too slow, and at this pace, we are only aiming for doomsday, I think so. What we need now is the element of faster and quicker, and sometimes a pace that is unprecedented was never there before, because the need of the necessity is like that way today. I think so. We are driving ourselves into an over-consuming market. And I think so, if you all ask yourself, you buy a lot of things, how many of those things do we actually use, I think there is an enormous amount of overconsumption. And my aspect to that overconsumption is because things have started becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, that it has made it very accessible to a lot of people. And then we start to over-consume things. And, we are at fault at first, say as a supermarket, we take advantage of your instinct of overconsumption. We actually thrive on overconsumption. A simplest example to that is that I'm sharing a big secret. They will throw me out of my company pretty soon after I go back from here. What happens is that I bundle out 4 pizzas. In my school times, I go into Migros, was the supermarket in Switzerland. I used to go there. Used to bundle up the thing, 4 for the price of 1. I said, I think I made a good deal. I'll buy all the 4. By the time I eat the second pizza, the 2 other is already expired, and I will not be able to consume it. So thereby, I feel that I am fooled. But it took me a good 10 years to understand that I'm being fooled on a constant basis like this way. So the element to give you something bigger than what you thought for is your necessity to buy that. But are we buying it right? Are we? I think so. The newer generation, it's in the hands of all you guys. And because you are going to be a consumer, and you should not be a consumer like how we were. We were just a consumer. You should be a demanding consumer. A consumer that says that if I don't have a plastic-free product, I won't buy your product. And unless you guys, who are the next set of people who are getting into that level, don't start demanding, I think so we are all heading for doomsday faster than we all think, because there is enormous amount of wastage of plastic that is coming inside, and the world is not taking it seriously. And there is sustainability aspect when we go inside. And this was a question that we were discussing in the forum in Lucerne, in Andermatt last week. I was telling, if there is no priority based on how to build a hotel, and I build a LEED platinum building and the next guy does not build it, and I have to charge more and the next guy don't charge more, and I'm at a loss in a business. So it's very important that government starts to wake up and start putting a certain level of regulations in place that would protect this planet in faster aspect. What that means, it means that the cost of goods would start to go up. Whether we as a combined consuming society is willing to take up that price, I think so. My viewpoint is that we should. Then the question is that if there are biofuels that can go into aeroplanes, which would produce less carbon footprints, but it's more expensive. If they put that one, then the element is that the cost of tickets goes up. The question that got thrown out to me is that then would travel be that of the wealthy, and does the other people? I'm saying that even the wealthy should suffer on that aspect. Everybody should be willing to pay the right price for the product, and if you're not able to pay the right price for the product is going to be overconsumed. And then that makes it, it's that greed philosophy in corporate that comes through. And at the end of the day, we will be over-consuming and not giving back much into the things. A lot of people talk about EVs, the electronic charging cars. What we don't know is that it requires lithium, I believe, for the battery, and it's the most polluting thing to mine from the world. And if you look at certain Russian parts, the lithium mining has turned the entire rivers into red. So, we have problems on the other side while we are trying to address on this side, unless a global framework is not brought into an aspect, we have serious problems at hand. And I'm also part of that problem.
Well, I think those are very important thoughts to heed. In our community, we're very committed to doing better, but we ourselves find it difficult. Everyone has trouble giving up something.
True.
And of course, a large part of the world hasn't had things.
Yes.
And telling that part of the world you cannot have them, even though we did, is
Yes.
also very challenging. So there are trade-offs in sustainability, poverty eradication,
Absolutely.
all of these matters.
There was the interesting thing, so a question that we got from the audience was that we should try to eradicate poverty and not climate change. And my answer was that by the time we eradicate climate change, there would not be a problem of climate change anymore. Because we would have overconsumed ourselves to death. So but there is no right answer to that. So what the person said is also right. The poverty is much more an important aspect to address at this point of time, and we are spending a lot of time on climate, but we don't address the climate aspect because it's equally important. There are different balls that we have to juggle, but that's how we are going to be, unless we become a race that are more evolved, and that evolution will take time. Certain countries are able to commit more, and whereas certain other countries are not able to commit more, because they have their own agendas to fulfill at that point of time. I think so. If we all decide to play our part, I think so somewhere we'll be able to do a better job.
Adeeb, I think you're going to be a very busy man in 2 years when COP28 is here, and they're going to want to put you on every stage. Those are very powerful words you've said. I really have enjoyed so much this conversation with you, with a global business leader with this much range and mastery, and with moral purpose. I really want to thank you so much for giving so much of your time.
Thank you very much for having me here. So at first when yourself asked me to do this one, I thought there isn't hardly anything that I can share. I'm also learning as I'm going. I think so. I'm just on the tip of an iceberg in terms of knowledge that I today possess. I think so. There's a lot more that other people, and more than being here, I like to sit on yourself and learn. The aspect from your side, what do you look at the world coming through, and how you would perceive the way forward. Because unless I don't understand the new consumer, I would never be able to tailor make the products that you require. So for me also, it was very important to be here. To understand everybody's perspective. Thank you very much for patiently listening to all the crap that I said.
It was wonderful. Adeeb Ahamed, thank you so much.
Thank you.